So Vanguard has finally launched, and today I'm going to show you guys how to earn headshot medals really fast in the game. These are obviously needed for many different challenges, but most probably you're going to be needing them for like the mastery camos in Call of Vanguard, so the gold, diamond and atomic camos. So obviously for each weapon category you need to get headshots, and I'm sure that's what a lot of you guys are here for. These headshots can be quite daunting to go for, because for camo guides you need to get a lot of headshots with each weapon, but I'm going to show you guys the best class setup to use, the best maps and game modes, and then some excellent tips towards the end of the video. So if you need to get these headshots done even faster, so if you need those tips, make sure to stick around until the end of the video to get the most out of this guide. But if you do want to jump to a specific part, there will be timestamps in the description. If you need help with leveling up fast, doing better in the game or completing any challenges or other camo guides, like long shots, bloodthirsty raptor kills, anything like that, I'm going to have plenty of videos on my channel. Given that the game's just come out, there'll be playlists for like camo guides and all those other videos, so feel free to check them out. There'll be links in the description and a card on screen if you need any of that. Feel free to check it out, it's all on my channel. Without further ado, let's get into the video. So headshots are needed for a variety of weapons. For the mastery camo challenges, I believe it's going to be about 100 headshots for all weapons. That's what it's been for the few classes like SMGs and assault rifles and so on that I've come across, but there may be a few classes that need a little bit less than that, but I'm assuming most, if not all of them, will require you to get 100 headshots. So first let's talk about the game mode, and then we'll talk about some of the other tips as well. So the best kind of game modes, in my opinion, right now in the game for headshots are ones like free-for-all and domination. Obviously any mode can do, but those are better. The reason for it is because with like free-for-all, for example, everybody is an enemy, you've got more enemies on the map, it's close quarters combat gameplay, you're more likely to get kills, and therefore if you aim at the right place, you're more likely to get headshots as well. You can do this in either core or hardcore. Hardcore can be easier for some people don't like it, so it's up to you. If you're very accurate, then hardcore is probably better. If not, then core is probably best for you. But I think that's definitely one of the best modes, and it's one I've been using so far, and I easily got 100 headshots for my weapon very quickly after the game came out. The other main mode you can do is domination. The reason for this is that the spawns generally don't flip, so it's easier to get closer to and flank around the enemies, because if you can get behind the enemies, it's easier to get a headshot if they don't see you, because that way you can come up to them and aim in the exact right place. You're also more likely to find inactive players as well, and obviously that's a free headshot for you in like an enemy spawn. A new setting in this game, which not many people will be aware of, is the combat pacing setting. What this means is it determines how many players are in a match. So sometimes you can be put in a match even if it's against your preference, but the way it works is that you decide which preference you want to go for. There's three options, either tactical, assault or blitz. Tactical means you're going to be in the matches with the least amount of players. Assault will be more than that, so it's like a medium amount of players, and then blitz will be a large amount of players. Obviously the reason why tactical is not very good, is the least amount of players, is because generally a lot of these maps in the game are very large, and you don't want to have to run across the whole side of the map to find someone and then just see that they're like camping in a corner and they end up taking you out. So tactical is not great because you won't come across a lot of people. Assault is a good sweet spot because you get a medium amount of players. It's not too hectic, but it's not too empty, so that's really, really good. You may even want to go for blitz. I think blitz, to be honest with you, can be good for certain game modes. So for example, if you are playing free-for-all, I think blitz can actually be really good. It sounds horrible, but I had quite a few good matches with blitz where there was so many enemies, but it didn't matter because I was able to get tons and tons of headshots one after the other, and hopefully you'll see that in the gameplay. So blitz can be good. Don't feel like you have to stay away from it because it's a large amount of players, but it might not be right for you, and if it's not, obviously stick with the assault. In terms of the maps, there's loads of maps at launch. There's 16 regular maps, which is really good compared to most games, but they're not all great for headshots. So the best ones for headshots are ones like Berlin, that's pretty decent. Castle is great. Das Haus is excellent. I think that's probably the best map in the game currently for getting kills and headshots and all sorts, because it's so small, but you've got lots of players, it's easy to find people, it kind of plays like Shipment, Shoot House, Nuketown, that kind of map. So Das Haus is really, really good. Always trying to get into maps with Das Haus if you can. Other good ones would be ones like Decoy, which is decent, and we've also got Demyansk is alright, but it's not amazing. Dome is really good as well. You'll probably see some gameplay where I was playing on Dome. Got loads of kills, loads of headshots, so that was a really, really good map as well. Probably one of my favourite behind Das Haus. And also ones like Eagle's Nest, that's alright. Hotel Royale is really good, especially in that central region with like the dining area and the kitchen. That's really, really good and a hot spot for fights, so that's really good. Other ones which are alright are ones like Numa Numa. Oasis is alright, Sub-Pens is decent, and then Tuscan is alright as well. So the best ones are like Castle, Das Haus, Dome, those kind of maps are the best ones, but the other ones are alright too, but there's also a few that I would just avoid. To try and get into the lobbies with smaller maps that are more decent to play on. Over time, more maps will be added, obviously. If there is a new map added that is a high kill, close quarters combat, you know, very sort of fast-paced map, or if they release any original maps from previous CODs that are good, like so for example, if they re-release like Shipment 1944 from the last like World War II game, something like that, then definitely obviously make use of this too. I'm sure when the new season launches in December, there'll be a few good maps, probably a few popular remakes, so obviously if there are any good maps, use those, but for now, these are the best maps in the game. Right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about a class setup that I would recommend for you guys, and at the end of the video we'll talk about the best tips overall. So I hope you find this all useful. So for the class setup, attachments are probably likely to vary from class to class, obviously, hence if the specific attachment I suggest isn't available for your weapon, try to use the most similar attachment or try to apply the general tips I'm giving you guys here for your class. So for attachments, generally you want a good optic such as the NIDAR model 47, the slate reflector, the Mark 13 sun filter, the monocular reflector, the Mark 3 reflector, and the Mark 8 reflector. The last one is not great. It's only good if you're up very close with the enemies, otherwise it's a bit of a scattered optic. Of those, you know, those are kind of the best ones to go for. Of those, my favourite ones are the slate reflector, the Mark 3 reflector, possibly the monocular reflector. Those kind of ones are my favourites, I think, because they're really clear, they're simple, but some of them obviously you need to level up your weapon a little bit. So go for the simpler ones first, which are unlocked at lower levels. Like a slate reflector is a really, really decent one, and it's one of the first ones you get. If you're not sure which one to go for, try that. You can't go wrong with it. Then you want attachments that generally will increase your recoil control and accuracy, increase your aim down sight speed or sprint to fire speed, increase your aim walking movement speed, increase your ammo capacity and your recoil control, your movement speed, and then also your damage, that kind of thing. Just note that obviously you need to tailor the attachments to your specific weapon. So for example, weapons with more recoil, like big heavy LMGs that are kind of slow, will need attachments that boost the movement and aim down sight speed and also the recoil control. So it just depends on what weapon you're using. For the perks, you're going to want to put on something like Ninja in perk 1, as it allows you to move silently, take reduced damage when falling, and also reduces the effectiveness of an enemy's tracker perk, which is useful as well. Speaking of which, in perk 2, I'd recommend you go for tracker, as it allows you to see an imprint trail of enemy footsteps. So obviously you can find enemies on the map, go towards them, go up behind them, and shoot them in the head to get lots of headshots. For the third perk, you can either put on lightweight, which increases your movement speed, or otherwise, if you run out of ammo, you can put on scavenger, which allows you to replenish ammo from dead players. Those would be the perks I recommend. Then for the equipment, I recommend putting on the number 69 stun grenade for the tactical, which temporarily slows enemy movement and aiming, so they can't move away and they can't shoot you, so it makes enemies an easier target, so you can run up to them and aim at the head and get an easy headshot. So definitely make use of this. The lethal you generally want to avoid using, so it doesn't matter, because obviously that will take away from the number of kills you can get with the weapon. And then for the field upgrade, you can put on something like the field mic, which reveals nearby enemy movement to find more enemies to get more kills by running up to them and shooting them in the head to obviously get more headshots. For the kill streaks, you can put on ones like intel, which reveals nearby enemies via the map pings. You can also put on spy plane, which reveals enemy positions on the minimap. And finally, you can put on local informants. This is quite a high streak, so you don't have to go for it, but this is basically an advanced UAV, so it reveals location and direction of all enemies on the map. Those are kind of they're all tactical kill streaks. They don't get you kills, they help you to find enemies to get more kills yourself, because that's the best thing you can do to help you get these headshots faster. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 3 examples of class setups in terms of the attachments for an assault rifle, an SMG, and a light machine gun. Just kind of give you an idea of what attachments I'd be putting on. But obviously try and apply these general tips to whatever your class you're using. If you're using other weapons and you need help with that, I can try and make some guides in the future on how to get headshots with that specific weapon class, but we're going to look at one example on each just for this to kind of give you guys an idea. So for the assault rifle, I had the STG-44, and the attachments I put on were the following. So I put on the Mercury silencer for the muzzle. I then put on the Krausnik 120mm precision barrel, which allows the weapon to be highly accurate and controllable. And this is the really important point. It increases your headshot damage. This is a really important attachment. If you can find any attachment that does that, definitely use it. Next, for the optic, I put on the slate reflector, but you could also put on the Mark 3 with sun filter or the Mark 3 reflector or any of those optics I mentioned earlier. Obviously, if you don't like the reticle for any of the optics, you can consider changing the reticle in the customize tab on Gunsmith to something that's more clear or precise and less distracting if you're struggling to see enemies, like where their head is when aiming down sight through the optic or anything like that. Then we put on the Constans tactical stock. We then put on sleight of hand for the proficiency, and we put on the fully loaded kit. For the rear grip, we put on fabric grip, and I then put on the 7.62 Gorenko 30 round mags. I then put on the subsonic ammo type, and finally I put on the M3 ready grip for the underbarrel. So that's my example class for the assault rifle. For the SMG, I'd put on something like an f8 stabilizer for the muzzle. I'd also put on the Krausnik 221mm 01B barrel, but for the optic I'd put on a Mark III reflector or a state reflector optic. I'd then put on the VDD 34M padded stock, and I put on brace for the proficiency, for like the perk. I put on the fully loaded kit, and I put on the stippled grip for the rear grip. Next I put on the 7.62 Gorenko 32 round mags, and I put on the subsonic ammo type. And finally I put on the Carver foregrip. So that's what I put for my SMG. I think I had the MP40 in this case. I'm going to talk about the LMG quickly, and then we'll talk about some final tips overall to kind of improve your chance of getting headshots. So for the LMG, I put on the f8 stabilizer for the muzzle. I put on the Krausnik 450mm barrel. For the optic, I put on the monocular reflector, or you could also put on the Mark III sun filter, and you'll probably also want to put on the VDD skeletal stock. After this, I went for the tight grip for the proficiency. I then put on the fully loaded kit for max starting ammo, the fabric grip for the rear grip. I then went for the 6.5 Sakura 125 round mags. Then I went for the subsonic ammo type again, and finally I went for the Carver foregrip. So those are my example class setups for the assault rifle, SMG and LMG. Obviously try and apply those tips and those attachments for whatever weapon you're using, and obviously if you want to change anything, feel free. Now let's finally talk about some tips which can help you to improve in the game. So the first main thing, and I know this sounds kind of obvious, but it's really important to kind of emphasize, you absolutely must be aiming for the head. Obviously it's a headshot, so you need to aim for the head, but really make sure you're doing it at all times. Either where you see someone's head if they're in front of you, or where you expect someone's head to be if they're like round a corner. Because otherwise, if you're not aiming in the right place and then someone comes at you and you didn't expect them there, you then have to wait and adjust to where they are, and that can all take time, and then they can shoot you in that time, or you can be inaccurate and either kill them and not get a headshot or just die. So this all wastes time. So always try and make sure you're aiming roughly where someone's head will be, so that if they pop out at you, all you have to do is pull the trigger and hopefully get a headshot. If there is someone there, don't rush, try to line up the shot if possible, but obviously don't take too long so that you die. Another important thing is to adjust your sensitivity and aim down sight sensitivity if needed, either higher or lower. If you're kind of overshooting and going past someone's head very easily, then obviously your sensitivity is likely too high, or if it's taking too long to aim at them, then your sensitivity is too low. If you're struggling getting headshots, then feel free to warm up in custom games with bots to kind of get used to getting headshots with the weapon and your class. And I think generally a slower playstyle may definitely help for this game. You've got to be quick, but don't excessively run and gun the whole game, or else you'll die a lot. Also, like I say, make use of stun grenades. Obviously if you stun enemies, it will mobilize them, and it makes them a much easier target for you to go up to them, kill them and get the headshot. So it's obviously really useful in that regard. I also definitely recommend watching your minimap, spy plane, using your compass, listening out for footsteps and sounds. Just kind of have an idea of where the enemies are and try and go towards them, and if you can, try and flank around them to shoot them from behind, as it's a lot easier to get the headshot. Also look out for enemies in windows, doorways, behind cover, if they're prone, as these are much easier scenarios to aim for the head. Check enemy spawns in case anyone's inactive and it's a free headshot. And like I say, also definitely make use of that tracker perk. Use the footsteps, look out for them to find out where the enemy's going and try to run up behind them to get the kill. So those are all my tips for getting headshots. If you found this video useful, be sure to leave a like on the video, and feel free to subscribe with your post notifications turned on to stay up to date with all my latest Vanguard and Warzone videos. Feel free to check out any other Vanguard guides on my channel, like camo guides, leveling up weapons fast, any of that stuff. Feel free to check it out. There'll be links for those in the description and a card on screen. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you found this useful, and I'll see you guys all on the next one.